Welcome to AuthorTube News, where we find the latest news in publishing so you don't have to. I am your co-host, Carrow Brown.
And I am Tamara Woods. And guess what? RWA, still a thing, still happening, and we're still going to talk about it.
Still on fire. I've gone from being like completely enraged on this topic to just kind of being like, is it over yet? Like it's like I can't even describe how painful this is to watch right now.
Yeah, but there's been interesting developments, and at least that's happened.
That's true. And speaking of developments, I'm gonna go ahead and let you spearhead that because I know that you're gonna want to mention some of these new topics that came up very gleefully.
Now, I'm not sure how many of you check out the description, but you always should, because like our last episode, the day that we were recording, and editing, the acting president stepped down. And I put it in the description, but we couldn't add it to the podcast itself, which was a bummer. And I hate that. I hate that we couldn't add it in, but it was just the timing was off. So when something like that happens, if we've recorded a story and we're posting it and there's like a major development, I'll have it in the description. We'll have it in the description for you. So yes, RWA President Damon Suede. He is no longer a thing. And the interesting part about this is, and I quote, they're not immediately going to fill the office of president while the board, working transparently with this membership, determines an appropriate recruitment and selection process. So they're leaving the president position open, and they're going to work with its membership, which will be interesting to see who's going to be the next president.
I'm kind of glad that they're not really rushing into this because, like, over the time for his temporary stay in office, it came to light that he didn't even qualify for the position. Like, he actually like didn't have enough books written to qualify. He has to have like 5 books out, and he didn't have 5. He had like 4.5.
Yeah, I feel like that is on the RWA timeline. That link is in the description. We've just been updating it as we go along. So yeah, check out the timeline if you want to see the complete details. So him stepping down was in the announcement from the RWA Board of Directors. So that was one thing that they mentioned. Another thing that they mentioned was the audit. So the audit is happening independently of RWA with law firm by the name of Pillsbury. There's a link in the description for a screenshot of a letter from Julia Judish, who basically she confirms that anyone with individual complaints against RWA needs to submit their paperwork to Carroll Ritter instead of submitting it to the law firm directly. Now, Carroll Ritter resigned as executive director, but she has stayed on to help smooth the transition. And there's a link for that, of course, as well. And so there was a lot of speculation as to how this was going to work, because she's going to be kind of spearheading this whole audit about a situation that was a problem underneath her tenure. Because the law firm has been retained to conduct an independent audit of all the recent ethics complaints relating to Courtney Milan and related events, as well as to make recommendations for any changes to the organization's ethics policy and procedures. And they made a point to let us know that they have not advised RWA on any prior matters. So with that being said, it's a little bit murky here how that's going to work if all of the individual complaints, are going to have to filter through a person that it seems like a lot of people in the RWA does not trust to have their best interest at heart.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to understand what's going on if everything always has to go through one person and get their okay before being passed on. I see that not working at all, but what do I know?
Yeah, we're just out here just looking and telling you guys what's going on.
I definitely am very curious about the inner workings of the decision making within the RWA because again, I mean, you and I we're just tiny little authors on the outside looking, at the vast bonfire in the distance, and I'm always kind of like, how did we get here? Like, why did this happen? What meetings, like how did these meetings go where they came up with like these decisions? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I feel like that's why it's so interesting that they use the term transparency in this announcement that they put out this earlier this month, because you wonder, okay, what does that mean to you as an organization? Because right now it doesn't seem like transparency has really been on the table. So how does that change? And I think that current members and even members who've just recently left the RWA are really wondering, how are you going to change things, and how are you going to communicate with us about these changes? So I guess we'll see.
I know like a couple weeks ago I was all fired up and like burn it to the ground. But like I'm kind of hoping like I would almost like this to be like a phoenix moment, like from the ashes something better comes out because that would give me hope. Mostly because of just watching how like some of these other groups are developing. And it's kind of I guess part of the reason I feel that way is because for those of you who weren't already part of it, unfortunately the Romance Alliance that we were all kind of hyping up 2 weeks ago announced this week that they were not going to be an official organization, and the reason behind that is because they found that they grew a little too quickly, and in growing quickly and with all their enthusiasm and everything that they wanted to do right, they ended up making mistakes, and part of that is that when problems developed, they weren't addressed, and some people got I don't want to say hurt because that sounds dramatic, but things didn't go very well. And they decided at this point they don't want to be an official group, but they do want to be like a community of people who are still striving for the same thing, which is basically embracing diversity and fairness within the romance organization.
Yeah, it's definitely, it happens so fast. All of this has happened so quickly, even though it's been building up for a long time. In order for an organization to be created, it's more than just saying we're going to create a Discord group and a newsletter. And they didn't have any info structure created, and I don't think that they had really thought it through to what they needed to do in order to be an official organization. But maybe in the future things will change and they'll decide to go that route. We don't know.
Would be nice. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's just so uncertain right now. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Like literally, we don't know. Oh goodness. All right. What do we go to next? Oh, so okay. So here's something interesting that popped up from the RWA stuff. We're gonna take a little trip into something that's not as serious, but it's interesting. So, did you hear about the Writers United documentary about RWA?
I heard some rumbles about it, but I didn't dive too deep into it.
So, first of all, this is not affiliated with the Facebook group or the website of the same name, Writers Unite. But it's called Writers Unite Diversity and Inclusion in Pop Culture. It's going to be a documentary about romance writers of America, and it currently has an Indiegogo. And initially, I found out about it because there were so many rumblings. Apparently, on the Indiegogo, they had quoted a bunch of like popular authors, including Nora Roberts. Why do y'all keep coming for Nora? Um, so all those quotes are gone. I don't really know what happened. I can't speculate. They were gone before I got to them, but I'm going to assume that either they saw the rumblings that were happening in the community or they were contacted directly, but I don't know for sure. That's just speculation. So I looked up to see who was behind this, and it's created by Reveal Live Entertainment. And this is a company that was incorporated July 2019, just last year, as a LLC. And I looked up the CEO, Carrow Williamson's LinkedIn. There was really no further info. I didn't see any projects that were underneath of the Reveal Live Entertainment umbrella, and I couldn't find a website for them. So I don't know what's up with this company. Right now, their Indiegogo, I think, has just a handful of supporters. I feel like it was just five or something. So I don't know if this will ever come to be anything. I don't know if it's a company that's really into wanting to start doing documentaries, or if there's someone who's just trying to ride the back of this controversy. I'm not sure, but I thought that was just something interesting that we could keep an eye on for future moments.
I'm definitely interested in that. That sounds like a very a fun learning experience for the rest of us to pick up from. So basically, don't quote people without getting permission. Just saying, friends.
Yeah, just don't do that. That's just a bad idea. You don't want to, because, if you put their quotes into whatever you're trying to promote, then people will associate, oh, Carrow Brown, I saw her quote there on Tamara Woods's, Patreon or something, so she must support her. Well, if at some point Carrow hates me and she doesn't even know that her quote is on my Patreon, she'll be so mad.
Yeah,
So mad.
I think one thing that's funny is that Courtney Milan actually retweeted something and said, "This is not how you ask for permission to quote somebody." And somebody had basically said, "Hey, we're putting your thing on this site. Can we talk to you in a DM?" And it was just like, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that." And it was a tweet. It was just a tweet to the person that they were trying to quote from. I was like, normally you just kind of send an email. You don't just kind of call them out on Twitter.
Wow.
Oh, I gotta love all that. So talking about technology and social media and stuff like that, there are a couple of fun things that I found involving social commerce and publishing trends. One of the fun things I found in what's new in publishing is there was a study that was done where they were talking about social commerce and how that was going to end up affecting sales. And I was particularly interested in this because they are predicting a 72 growth in digital commerce because of ways that these different social media platforms are actually going to try and implement sales, because one of the things that they learned over the course of 2019 is that people are looking to instantly buy things. If they see something online, they want to click on it and then they want to buy it. Some of you may or may not be familiar with one of the things that Instagram does, which is called Instagram shopping. And in Instagram shopping, you'll see a model and they'll have like glasses and their bag and all that other stuff. And what Instagram shopping does is it makes it possible for you to see what items are in there, along with the price and where you can find it at. So there's things like that are happening. And for you to be enrolled in that, you have, obviously you have to meet all the criteria that's for that, including the fact that you are a product channel, not a personal brand. It's a business, all that other stuff. And one of the other interesting, I keep saying interesting, that's my word for the day. One of the other interesting studies is that they went and like surveyed a group of women who identified as millennials, and they found that 76% of them were actually wishing that they could take advantage of things like that, and just purchase those things, and also purchase other items such as articles, photos, videos, just like little single purchase things. And like on one hand, I'm like, that's really convenient. I kind of like it. And on the other hand, I'm kind of like, that means that I won't have any self-control in the future. I'm kind of terrified. I don't know what your thought on that is, Tamara.
I think that I'm sure it's going to be implemented, and I'm going to have to just not do it, because like right now, if you're looking at a makeup from, I don't know, from ColourPop or something, there you'll be able to click on it and see what the product is, and then you're kind of sent off site to go and look at it on the ColourPop web page. So if you were able to just swipe and buy it, oh dear. And there's so many ads on Instagram. Like, people are always pushing something.
Yeah, that's really true. Like it's a little hard for me to be on Instagram sometimes when I'm kind of like, y'all trying to sell me something, and I understand you gotta make a living, but I just came here to look at like books and flowers, man. Like.
Yeah, sometimes I don't want to, but well, of course I was going to say Teamy Tea, but I don't think that they are allowed on there anymore. But that's a totally different subject. I think it's going to be interesting to how consumers are going to change their behavior, and whether or not that they'll kind of buy into the swiping.
Yeah, and publishers are really kind of keen on this too, because obviously when they see that this is something that people want, they're going to be like, well, how can we take advantage of that? Which is, not a bad mindset to have. It just kind of makes me wonder about like how our industry is going to change. Like, we're already seeing that bookstores are kind of slowly dying out. Is this going to be the thing that like makes it happen? Like, my concern is that bookstores are going to become a rich man hobby where you can only get the physical copies if you can, if you're willing to spend like $50 on, a book that you and I would have paid like $10 on when we were kids. You know what I mean?
I think that for some people, that is the way it is. That it's buying paper copies of books can be way expensive, especially when they're new. Like you talked about in one podcast, going into Barnes and Noble and having a gift certificate or gift card and not being able to buy a book with it because they were more expensive than the gift card. And it was like, what, $25? So I think there's definitely a cost prohibitive kind of wall between readers and going to like an actual bookstore, like a brick and mortar bookstore. But hopefully these companies will sort of go into Instagram and Facebook and make their social media presence more known so that they can get more of these e-book purchases and perhaps somehow supplement that income so that the actual in-store prices aren't so terribly unattainable sometimes. A lot of people really enjoy reading and they don't necessarily have a disposable income to supplement it.
I know I don't. I had to get a whole bunch of books from like, not a secondhand store, but like a third-hand store because I wanted to have the books, but I was like I said, I couldn't even afford them in the store, and that made me really sad. But yeah.
So, speaking of companies and organizations being utilized to help people read on the cheap, so there's Quickreads. It's a literary charity organization in the UK. And since 2006, they've produced free ebooks for quote unquote less confident adult readers. So, adult readers who may struggle a little bit to read. And they also commission licensed books as well. And they released this interesting survey. So the survey was talking about adult readers who are basically using their organization and they're reading ebooks, right? So 62% said that being able to access free ebooks has meant that they have read books they never would have otherwise read because now they had access to them. And 48% of the UK adults who use e-readers said that technology gets them to read more. And 41% of respondents reported that being able to look up words they didn't know made reading easier. So I thought that was a really interesting survey.
Yeah, I actually like that a lot. I know Kindle kind of does that too, where it's kind of like, do you not know what this word is? And you can click on it and look it up. And I think that's a great feature to add to books.
Yeah, the Nook does that too from Barnes and Noble, being able to look up the word and figuring out what it means. And I love that this organization exists. And I think it's really interesting because in 2018, they had announced that they didn't have finances to be able to keep going and they were going to close. And the author of Me Before You supplemented them so that they could continue going for 3 years. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's super cool. Way to go, author.
So Jojo Moyes. I think that's how her last name is pronounced, Moyes, Moyes. Jojo, you're awesome. And my question to you, dear listeners, do you know of any North American organizations that do the kind of the same thing? Because with Quickreads, it's books that are also licensed. So there's contemporary literature as well that people can read. So it's not just like, I know that here in the US, there you can get like classics that are over 100 years old. You can access those for free. But I wasn't sure if there was anything that was contemporary that allowed you to read things for free other than public libraries. So if you guys have any ideas, suggestions, let us know in the comments. We love conversation.
We do. We love talking to you. It's a true story. Speaking of talking to you, because I'm doing a bad transition into
Oof.
I know. I know, not my thing. So I have two interesting articles here, and I'm not sure which one I want to do first because so like One is about one of the branches of the Cosmopolitan closing, and the other one has to do with AIs and how they can be used in editorial teams and some of the concerns with that. Which one do you want to knock out first?
Let's go with Cosmopolitan because I really don't know anything about this at all.
Okay, so what happened is last December, the Australian branch of the Cosmopolitan shut down. They're not going to publish anymore, and the reason that they're not going to publish anymore is because they found that publishing the magazine and printing it and distributing it was not commercially valuable anymore, which basically means that they weren't selling enough copies. This is partly due to the fact that there is a shift in the audience and what they want, and a lot of them are shifting to a digital medium. Many of them don't want to buy magazines anymore because they can get the exact same information that, that's in the magazine online. And not to be too mean to the Cosmopolitan, but part of one of the things that I knew when I used to read it is that, you could almost, routinely know what kind of articles were going to come out every month if you had been subscribed for a while. So I'm sure they were facing that problem a little bit. There was definitely some speculation late last year about what was going on with the Australian branch because they didn't come out with their Cosmopolitan Bride quarterly print, and people were asking about it, and that publishing branch didn't respond at all. And unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be the first one. I think this is, it's not the first one, it's not the last one. I think we're seeing a slow domino effect here as people kind of shift their priorities about where they want to get their information from. And, if they can find the content online, I mean, why have the magazine,
Well, this has been an issue with print journalism for like the past, I don't know, since I got my degree in it.
Are you a little bitter about that?
Not even. Oh God. It's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, and I don't think that there's going to be any. I don't think the tide's going to change anytime soon. I think that everyone who is out here trying to get news out needs to have a digital face. There's no other way to do it. That's where our younger readers who are growing up, they are digital, and they're going to be the ones who are buying into these information outlets. And like, even when we're looking at, let's say, oh gosh, I don't know, like the New York Times kind of thing where you get to look at X amount of articles in a month. I think it's 10. And then after that, you are for free. And then after that, you have to pay for a subscription. Even having something like that helps to bring more readers into your realm because a lot of people want to read what's happening there. But I think that there would also be a lot of good in offering articles for like 99 cents a pop if you don't actually want to get a subscription. You really just want to read this one article. I think that news outlets are going to have to learn how to adjust and kind of change how they do things with very different mass media market than even 20 years ago. Times are changing.
Yep, sure are. Man, I don't know. Sometimes this stuff changes a little too fast even for me, and I do my best to keep up with it. It's hard.
Oh, it's definitely not easy. Especially for us olds.
So old.
We wanted to give an announcement about the Writers Digest Self-Published Book Awards. It's now open to the public, and the categories are mainstream/literary fiction, genre fiction, nonfiction/reference, inspirational, life stories, early readers/children's picture books, middle grade/young adult, and poetry. The first cash prize is $8,000. All entrants must send a printed and bound book, so it's not through e-digital copies, and it's due April 1st. And there's a lot more information listed on their website, including, how to do it. So that link is in the description. We just thought that you guys might be interested in knowing.
Yeah, I definitely like finding out about more of contests like this just because I think that those are great opportunities for everybody. I'm all about that. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that. All right, so I got 2 more articles to talk about before we hit the last one. And these are kind of like just interesting things that I read that I kind of wanted to share with you guys because I thought they were interesting. Word of the day. So the first one has to do with how AI can support editorial teams, and I know you guys have heard past tinfoil hat Carrow talk about AI and how AI is going to take over and all that fun stuff. But we use AI a lot in our daily lives, whether we realize it or not. And some of the things that AI does for us is that they give us headline insights. They talk about seasonal recommendations. They also do image recognition, and they do audience targeting. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. They do a lot of things in regards to some of the AIs that we use as authors. They are Hemingway, the Hemingway app, the Pro Writing Aid, and Grammarly. Those are all AI controlled as well. And the article, and again, it's listed down below. It's a little short thing. Kind of talks about how editorial teams should be able to use AIs, but they shouldn't rely on them. And one of the big things that I kind of liked about this article is that they said that AIs are not going to be replacing people anytime soon, and that makes me feel kind of good because every now and then when I see somebody post a video about how I downloaded 10,000 books into my AI and this is the book it read, I always have like a minor fright moment because I'm like, what if it writes a really good book? What's going to happen to us then? But it always comes out as gobbledygook, and I feel better about myself. So there's that.
So let's hope that they keep making that gobbledygook because, I don't want to be out of a job.
Yeah, I like writing books. Don't take my job, Skynet. Please don't.
Yikes. And, I think that is really interesting to think about. And we were discussing AI in the last episode when we were talking about like predictions for 2020 and this decade in general. And, a lot of us, like I use Pro Writing Aid and, I've used Grammarly in the past. I haven't used Hemingway, but I think that all of us tend to use some of these AI in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, it's definitely stuff that I like to keep an eye out because I know it's going to affect my job. And now, okay, so I want to go ahead and move on to my last article, which has to do with, you guessed it, me talking about Dream Spinner again. I'm not a big fan of Dream Spinner. If you're new here, listener, I don't really approve of an organization that takes authors' money and doesn't pay the authors. It's absolutely ridiculous, and this has been an ongoing issue since last May. So, in a little bit, it's going to be for a year, and that's going to make it ultra sad for me. But one of the new developments that kind of came up that we wanted to discuss has to do with the fact that there was an article that was written by the Jezebel, and in the Jezebel they were recounting pretty much everything that happened with the RWA meltdown. And in that, they actually interviewed a couple of the authors who are wronged by Dream Spinner. And what blew my mind is that they kind of talked about how like these things were happening with Dream Spinner, but that Dream Spinner was doing fine, and then they didn't address it anymore, and they continued to talk about Damien and all the silly stuff that he was doing. And I thought, in my humble opinion, that was a terrible way to address that issue, because if you say that it's fine and then you don't like follow up with but these authors are still not paid at the time of the publishing of this article, what are you doing? Like what is happening?
That's lazy.
Yeah.
That's lazy journalism. Not to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah.
Lazy.
Yeah, super lazy journalism leaves a really bad impression because then it's kind of downplaying what's going on as well. And it gets a little bit better because it turns out that there was a letter sent to the RWA, formally, about Dream Spinner, and I went ahead and I attached it down below for you guys. But one of the key things that I would like to kind of verbally say to you, listener, is that they brought up about how past situations were very swiftly addressed and very swiftly commented on. For example, like the copy paste crisis and Cockygate, like RWA all over that stuff. But when it came to Dream Spinner, not a peep was said, and they actually had the following response from RWA in regards to it. And their response was along the lines of RWA Council has been advised to not make a public statement and that they could not provide legal advice. And if people felt like they needed a lawyer, they should go get one. Yeah.
Not a lot of support there.
No, and it's just another example about the bias and the conflict of interest that the RWA has in regards to addressing the situation with Dream Spinner. Because I remember when this first was brought to us, and I was like, they're going to do something, right? Like RWA said that we're going to investigate, and then not a damn thing after that. And again, I feel like if this new version of the RWA does address the dream spinner thing, it's gonna put some hope in my heart for this organization. But if they don't, then yeah, vote of no confidence from Carrow.
So, what do y'all think? Let us know in the comments. uh,
I feel like I talk about Dream Spinner like one every 3 episodes. Like, we're not done talking about these motherfuckers here.
well, as long as they're still out here not paying these authors, we're going to report about it. And if, oh my gosh, soon maybe, hopefully one day, they actually settle up with their authors and things become a bit more above board, then we'll let you guys know that as well. So for the last little bit, just a little something that's little and easy. And I was looking at Twitter, and I saw that The Catcher in the Rye was trending, which, I mean, y'all, that book came out in 1955. I think it was a collection of short stories, and then ended up being published as a novel. But I was like, why is Catcher in the Rye trending? And then I saw that it was about people who were talking about books that they had to read in high school and they hated, and this was one that people hated, which is so interesting because some people really love this book. I guess it just depends. So I thought, hey, maybe we could talk about a book that we loved reading and a book that we hated reading in high school that you guys can share as well. Let's get out those grievances.
Oh, this is gonna be interesting because so I grew up in Britain and I had to read all the British classics, and that was interesting. I'm trying to think about a book I didn't like though. Oh my goodness, let me think for a moment.
Well, with me, I loved reading and I loved reading everything. So I had to think really hard. And a book that I read during my high school time and I did not enjoy it, definitely 1984 by George Orwell. Did not enjoy reading that, and I didn't enjoy reading Animal Farm. I liked the ideas that were presented, but I didn't enjoy his writing style. It didn't hit me. It didn't grab me. I felt like I was trudging through like mud to get to the end. So, but I have reread 1984 as an adult, and you know what? It hits different. It's different these days.
No, yeah, because a lot of the books that they want us to read in high school is to give us like they're trying to make us have like that, or rather us. I'm not in high school anymore. They're trying to give the students who are at high school level profound books to read. And the part of the issue I used to have as a teacher is that the books are profound to adults with more life experience, and it's not quite as profound to the students that they're trying to get to read them because they're not able to connect with the writing that way. I ran into somebody who read Lord of the Flies, and she's like, I don't know why we had to read a book about kids beating each other with rocks. And I was like, it was a little bit deeper than that. And she's like, no, it's just kids beating each other with rocks. And I feel really bad that she walked away with that interpretation of the book because there's a lot of layers to that book. In fact, you know what? The Lord of the Flies is probably going to be my favorite book that I read in high school. And it was, and I think part of the reason I really liked it is because it was something that I could like discuss with my father with. So there's like kind of that association with it as well. It was like a book that, because he and I didn't always read the same books, but when I read that one, it was like a talking point for us, and that's where we started like merging our book reading together.
um, I liked that one definitely, but I feel like with that particular student that you're mentioning, it sounds like there was a failing on the teacher's part to bring up the themes that made that book interesting. Like a lot of times I've found with literature, the amount of interest was directly in correlation with how well the teacher was able to connect and relate with these students and make them think about these overarching themes that can apply to themselves. Because, as a teenager, we were all very self centered. Excuse me.
I remember those days. I guess the one story I probably didn't like is when we had to read Romeo and Juliet. That was really painful for me, and it's already kind of like a language barrier because you're reading it the way that the play was written, and so you're trying to adjust to that language. But I think I think for me as a teenager when I read that play, I just have an issue with reading stories about parent neglect and teen suicide. That just really doesn't do anything for me, and that's pretty much what that was.
I was a big Shakespeare fan. I even like took a special course so that I could learn more, and then later on in college I did the same. So
I
I
love
think
Shakespeare. I love it. I just don't like Romeo and Juliet.
I didn't have a problem with it. Let me see. What is my favorite? The color purple, I think, was probably my favorite pick. Um, but I don't think that was. Well, I can't remember if it was part of the school curriculum or if I had chosen it as like an extra book to read from a list. I feel like
That's gonna be
that's
an extra book because that I actually
yeah.
really like that book too, but it was definitely not on the recommended list. Like I remember when I joined honors English in high school that was on the supplemental reading list of things I could read in my own time, but it was not part of the core stuff that we were doing.
Were you in the UK or the US at that time?
I was in the UK, but I was on a military base, just because the way that the education system in Britain and America is very different, and they basically start like a year and a half earlier, and then they go a lot faster. So like they do multiplication at second grade for them.
I remember reading that, and I remember reading I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And both of those books were very big influence on how I thought about literature. But I also was a fan of Great Gatsby because of the because of all the layers of symbolism in the book. And I don't think I would have liked it as much if we hadn't had such like a robust conversation about all of that. But I was also a big book nerd and I took all of the accelerated English courses. So I think that my experience might have been different from other people's and I would like to know about it. So let me know in the comments. What were your experiences? What were your faves? And what is something that you were glad that you'll never have to read again?
Tamara, it's time for AuthorTube book launch news things where we talk about books that are coming out. Yay! Hey, I'm excited. Okay, like last time we didn't have any books and I guilted some people and they submitted. So not only do we have one book, we have two books to talk about. I'm so excited.
And we are opening up this shout out to people who aren't necessarily author tubers because we want to have books to talk about and it feels like author tubers aren't giving us enough to talk about. So we're coming into all of your communities and we're grabbing all your book links or you're submitting them to us down at the link in the description.
Yes, please do. We do like to spread the word about books that are coming out, small, big authors. It doesn't matter. We want to talk about it and we want to let everybody know that your book's coming out. So we have two books. The first one, it's going to be by Patricia Hoving, and the book title of that one is going to be Freedom to Reality, and her genre is a historical fantasy / romance. The launch date for this is going to be on the 21st of January, and it's going to be sold wherever books are sold. And the tagline for it is Freedom has a price and not everybody pays it. She wanted us to know that this book is a relaunch, new cover, and revised chapters 1 and 2. Also, this may be a silly question, but I wasn't sure if the tagline was the tagline for the book or my author tagline, so I put in the book tagline. Oh, okay. Well, the tagline for anybody listening is your book tagline.
This next book is by T.S. Valmond, and the book is called Exile, Verity Chronicles Book 1. And this is a space opera. It's going to be launching again January 24th. And this one is available on Amazon. And the tagline, a grifter, a gambler, an android, a spy. And those are the good guys. I am excited.
Girl, read the comment that she left us.
I will not read the comment because you said so.
Come on, read it.
Okay, fine. It's Shalina V. She comes to our live streams and our write-ins, and I'm so excited. And she said, "Thanks for helping me get through my edits, and thanks so much for the support." And when she comes to Honolulu, we're gonna have Kona coffee. I agree. Let's do that. And congratulations! I'm glad we could help. Oh, that was a great note to end this.
Oh, that's the good news we keep asking for. Oh, that's so great. I'm so happy for these people and their books coming out. Oh, okay. Okay, guys. So we're at the end of the podcast. Again, I'm very curious about what books you liked and didn't like.
Just tell us how you feel. Let us know. All of the different topics that we cover, they're in the description. So if you need a refresher, there they are for you. All the links that we mentioned, they're in the description. All the RWA stuff, that's in the spreadsheet that Carrow has been updating regularly because there's always something new happening. Always. But,
Always.
there's only two of us here, and there's so many of you out there. So if you find some news and you want us to check it out, hit us up on our email or on Twitter. Those links are also in the description.
All right, thanks so much for coming. Feel free to hit that like button, leave a comment. If you know some folks that would like to be updated in regards to some of the stuff that's going on that could affect our careers as writers, feel free to send a link to this video. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you all have a good one.
And thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next one.
Love us.
Love us.
Love us. Please love us.
Love us.